Hey, welcome to Class Act Media. I'm Jack, and yeah, who could have seen this coming, right? I've been complaining about this movie since before it was even released. You might be thinking, hey, go in with open mind, but let's be real. We left open mind behind a lifetime ago. Anyway, let's just get into it. Let's talk about Joker. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll probably have guessed that I've been against this movie since pretty much the first trailer. Follow me on Twitter, by the way. And no, before we get into it, my reason for hating it is not because it's some incel, extremist, dog whistle, rallying cry, or whatever nonsense certain media outlets are saying it is. But I'll be fair, I'll start by saying some things I like about it. The lead turns in a very good performance with the material he's given, plus the cinematography is great. I can tell this director has a great eye for visuals. Oh wait, my mistake, this is my review for Batman v Superman, how silly of me. Here's my Joker review. The lead turns in a very good performance with the material he's given, plus the cinematography is great. I can tell this director has a good eye for visuals. Remember just a few short years ago when it was considered a bad thing for the director of a comic book movie to have no understanding of the source material?
Gotta shoot him in the head.
Yeah, let's get into that. The biggest reason I was against the Joker movie for so long is that everyone involved seems to hate comic books and comic book movies. From Todd Phillips saying he wanted to make a quote-unquote real movie and disguise it as a comic book movie, to Mark Maron saying that comic book movies are, quote, for grown male nerd child, it was clear that everyone involved in this movie were intent on raising every single one of my red flags. And don't get me wrong, I think it's 100% possible for a director to make something great even with a source material that they hate. Starship Troopers is a great example of this. That film's director, Paul Verhoeven, clearly understood the book that the movie was based on. He had to in order to relentlessly mock its blatant fascistic and warmongering ideas. Hell, I myself want to make a movie or comic or something about Harley Quinn, a character whom I hate just because I want to shine a mirror on the aspects of her that I hate. But Joker? It's clear that Joker was written as a completely different movie, but Todd Phillips couldn't get his mediocre script greenlit by any studios until Warner Bros. Was just like, hey, with a little rework and this could be a Joker flick. We'll take it. They added in a bunch of cheap lip service for the comic books, like, ooh, Arkham State Hospital, that has a vaguely similar name to something in those comics I like. That's what Todd thinks comic book fans want, because in real life, mental hospitals aren't big gothic mansions. Remember when it was considered a bad thing for comic book movies to be embarrassed by their source materials?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
If Todd hates comic book movies, fine. Make a movie that delves into your issues with the genre. But no. It's clear that Todd had other ideas. He just wanted to make his own classic Martin Scorsese movie, and I do mean a Martin Scorsese movie. This is just King of Comedy. A delusional failing comedian who lives with his mom in a shitty apartment in a shittier city who often has fantasies about being on a talk show he loves. Also, he wears a red suit jacket when he finally gets on the show. There's a line between loving send-up and straight-up rip-off, and I think that line gets crossed when you get the star of the thing you're ripping off to play a part in your movie. And who could forget the scene in Joker that rips off the "you talking to me" scene from Taxi Driver that ultimately amounts to nothing. Behind all the boasting and bravado, you're just a little boy in the director's chair trying to be Martin Scorsese. It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic. Ah, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway. Ooh. Okay, to be fair, Joker does try to have a message that those Scorsese movies didn't have. We need to treat people with mental illnesses with more respect and compassion rather than pushing them aside. And it's a message I agree with. If only Todd knew any way of conveying that message aside from having Joaquin Phoenix turn to the camera and tell it to us every 5 minutes. Yeah, that cry laugh he did was great the first time he did it, better repeat that about a dozen times throughout the movie. Joker has a 13-year-old's understanding of social commentary. The whole time I was watching it, the song #Deep by Bo Burnham kept playing in my head. This movie had one thing to say, and it just kept hammering it into the audience until I was like, the Joker movie.
To end.
Now, let's talk about why I don't like this movie as an adaptation of The Joker. And Todd, if you're watching this, I know you probably don't want your movie to be examined this way. But when you decided to make this into a comic book movie for some cheap publicity, well, you locked yourself in with people like me, and it's time for my sweet, sweet vengeance. And by vengeance, I of course mean bitching to a camera on YouTube, but it's something. Yeah, let's just rip this band-aid off right now. The Joker is a fundamentally boring character without Batman. All through this movie I was like, Batman! Batman! Supervillains are created with one purpose: to combat superheroes. The measure of a good villain is how they contrast with and challenge their respective adversaries. For example, imagine if they made a Lex Luthor movie without Superman. Suddenly he's just a rich guy who thinks he's better than everyone. Riveting. Joker is no exception to this. A big part of his motivation is his obsession with Batman. He sees this guy who's just as crazy as he is, he's fascinated that he's using his craziness to save people, and constantly wants to test the limits of Batman's resolve. Without Batman, Joker has nobody to test, no point to prove. He's just a really whiny guy in makeup trying to cause general mayhem. Note to self, be sure to look up if General Mayhem is already a copyrighted character. Will Wolf has a great video about how the best Joker stories aren't actually about the Joker, and it brings me to my next point. I do not care about the Joker's origin. I just don't. A big part of the character's appeal is that mystery, that constant wondering where he came from and what drives him to do what he does. When I bring up this complaint, a lot of people point me to The Killing Joke, since that story has what many widely consider to be the Joker's true origin. Well, the way I see it, there are two big differences between Joker and The Killing Joke. One, that famous, "if I'm going to have a past, I'd prefer it to be multiple choice" line. The story we get in Killing Joke is just one of many possible truths. And two, Joker is portrayed as a perfectly normal guy in Killing Joke. He's not some crazed loner who's seconds away from snapping, he's just a regular down-on-his-luck guy who gets tied up with some bad people. It reinforces the Joker's idea that what happened to him could happen to anybody. But you know the real kicker about that idea of his? That thing that most Joker fans don't seem to get and that the Joker movie most certainly doesn't get? I want you all to pay attention to this now. The Joker is wrong. Just look at two of the most famous Joker stories. In Killing Joke, Joker is setting out to prove that just one bad day can drive a good man insane. But it doesn't work. In the end, even after trying to break Commissioner Gordon, he still doesn't want the Joker to be killed. He wants him brought in by the book. In The Dark Knight, Joker's big final plan is to prove that people will always act selfishly when it's their lives put up against those of strangers. But it doesn't work. His ideology was wrong. And that's where the Joker movie really fails. Sure, the movie shows his violent actions in a bad light. It's clear that Todd firmly stands against the actions that Arthur does. But it doesn't show his ideas as being wrong. At the end of Joker, he's not some terrorist nutjob feared by Gotham, but a revolutionary icon adored by a large portion of the city. This goes against the entire point of the Joker. He should be someone who has given up entirely on society, not the people's champion. When Batman shows up, it should be a battle of right versus wrong, not a battle of two similar ideologies who just have different ideas about how to achieve their goals. You want to know how I know that Joker is portraying Arthur as in the right? Well, look at how he's dressed. In the comics, his color scheme is purple and green, which are pretty classic villain colors. In Joker, his color scheme is red and blue. Hero colors. That may not have been intentional, but it was a subtle-ish detail that I couldn't help but notice. Oh wait, according to Todd, I guess Joaquin Phoenix wasn't even the real Joker. He was just the inspiration to the guy who would eventually fight Batman. So now you've ruined two Jokers by making one into just a fanboy of this whiny loser. Thanks. I hate it. Wait a minute. Todd, did you just retroactively add in a detail about your story that wasn't actually in the movie you made? Well, that sounds like something a comic book movie director would do. How ironic. In your hubris, he became the very thing you swore to destroy. Anyway, yeah, I hated Joker. I see a lot of people saying that they hope this is the future of comic book movies, but no. If comic book movies in the future become just vain, pretentious directors slapping comic book properties onto realistic takes on them, then it's a future I want no part of. See you next time, guys.
Just smile, darn you smile. Everybody needs a clown. Now with one stroke, the final joke. Just smile, darn you smile, darn you smile.